The United States carried out airstrikes in Nigeria yesterday as part of what U.S. President Donald Trump describes as a, quote, Christmas present for terrorists.
The footage of the terrorists killed, we have not seen that. We have not seen that. Unless we see the footage of those killed, then we'll be comfortable. Then we'll begin to support this airstrike. But as it is now, no.
Nigeria's government confirms it approved the operation as part of broader efforts to contain violence in the region. Northwestern Nigeria has seen a surge in kidnappings, village raids, and mass killings, often blamed on armed criminal gangs. U.S. officials link the violence to ISIS militants, and Trump has repeatedly claimed they're targeting Christians. But it remains unclear how closely ISIS is connected to the armed groups in the regions. And villagers near the strike site expressed surprise, saying local Christians coexist peacefully with the Muslim majority. So what do these two differing narratives mean, and how much of a foothold does ISIS have in that part of the country? I want to bring in Sajjan Gohel. He's a International Security Director at the Asia Pacific Foundation, joining us from London. Sajjan, good to have you.
Good to be with you.
What are your thoughts here? First on the operation itself, but then we're also seeing a bit of a differing of narratives in terms of what's coming from the United States versus what Nigeria is saying.
Well, certainly it's a very significant operation, and one wonders whether this could now be the process, the template for how the U.S. carries out its counterterrorism operations through its African Command, AFRICOM, which is based in Stuttgart in Germany. We have seen that in the past, the U.S. has worked with the Nigerian governments to deal with various terrorist groups in the region, most notably Boko Haram. Boko Haram itself was at one time affiliated to ISIS, and then there was a dispute over its direction. We know that Nigeria has a hodgepodge of different militant jihadist groups. So this is a concern that we've seen in the past. They've engaged in kidnapping, targeted killings, assassinations, going after police stations. There is this worry that militancy in the West African region is growing, especially in neighboring countries like Mali. So it'll be interesting to see whether the U.S. escalates this from its targeting of what's taken place in Nigeria.
How prominent is the existence, I guess, or the presence of ISIS in some of these regions? The Sokoto state is where the strikes took place. This is in the northwestern part of the country. But how prominent would you say it is in that area?
So Sokoto state, being in northeastern Nigeria, that has tended to be an area where groups affiliated to ISIS, again, like Boko Haram, have operated. It's their strength, it's their place of operations, it's where they've been able to recruit. Also, keep in mind that these groups don't just operate as terrorist entities, they're also criminal enterprises as well. Drug trade, human trafficking, raiding banks to make their money and their resources. And they also recruit very young people that they then utilize, manipulate, and exploit for terrorism-related purposes.
So how critical then is that relationship with the United States for Nigeria as they are trying to, as they say, this type of operation was pivotal in terms of ensuring the safety of all Nigerians versus Donald Trump focusing on Christian groups? They're saying that, no, this is for the broader range here in terms of bringing more safety to the country. How important is that now, that relationship in terms of where things move forward?
So it's important to also draw these key elements together, because we know that entities tied to ISIS haven't necessarily discriminated when it comes to who they target. A lot of Muslims have also been victims to these terrorist groups and their attacks and their atrocities. And very often when you find that Muslim communities don't cooperate with them, they become the primary targets of it. Yes, the banner of these groups is communal, it is sectarian, they espouse hatred for Christianity. Keep in mind that groups like Boko Haram, that actually means Western education is forbidden. So you see the narrative of how it is spun. But in reality also, you find that Muslim groups themselves are also targeted.
Indeed. And as we look at sort of the broader picture now, not just in terms of ISIS groups around the world, but the influence that we see. Sometimes we see sort of it happening with individuals or within smaller groups in other countries. What are you watching? What are you noticing?
Well, if we look at what took place at Bondi Beach in Australia, there was also a plot in Manchester in England a couple of months ago at a synagogue, that these are entities which are reflecting a broader shift. So microcells rather than formal organizations, making detection harder, yet the consequences are still severe. You can't necessarily call them lone actor cases. There is ideological reinforcement, there's task sharing, there's even family awareness. So we're seeing how the threat picture is actually evolving. It's not your traditional large-scale type of terrorist plots that are occurring, but more at a micro level that's occurring. And I think that perhaps is a concerning sign of what we may have to deal with as we enter 2026.
So then, having said that, are you seeing gaps then when it comes to where things stand on the international scale with regards to international intelligence, that cooperation, tracking? What are you noticing? Where are we missing the boat here?
Well, many of the terrorist plots, the radicalization that's occurring is happening online in spaces where the dark web exists, encrypted messaging apps. The terrorist groups that put out the propaganda, they are much more aware that there could be online surveillance by federal law enforcement agencies, the intelligence services. So this is becoming a challenge where there is a greater necessity for proactive intelligence, preemptive disruption, designed to thwart and foil plots. But it is very hard when the terrorist groups themselves know how to operate and when you see these microcells actually forming. So it becomes one of those challenges. And I think the other aspect is to understand how radicalization is occurring. It's not necessarily a physical process, it's a virtual one. There could be all kinds of motivations. Some of it's ideological, sometimes it's misogyny, hatred of women seems to draw a massive recruitment spur for these entities.
Sajjan, great to have your insights on this. Really appreciate your time. Sajjan Gohel is the International Security Director at the Asia Pacific Foundation.